I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Karen. My patients refer to me as Dr. Karen. I have a twin sister. She's a medical doctor. She just graduated on Friday, so now we have 2 doctors in the family. We're excited about that. She and I work back and forth in really understanding health and wellness and preventative care so that you don't end up going to see her later on in life. So I started Genesis Chiropractic and Wellness Center a little over a year ago. I work with nutrition, exercise, alignment of the spine. I'll teach you guys a lot about that. And always lifelong learning. I really want to ensure that everybody has a better understanding of their health in their body, because the best doctor out there is actually yourself, because your body knows how to heal itself. So today I'm going to be talking about labels and understanding how to read nutrition labels. How many of you guys get pretty confused when you're looking at the grocery store and you look at the label? And you're like, I don't know which one to look at. Is it better to look at the calories or the fat or the protein? I have no idea where to go with that. So we'll kind of go through this, and I just want to help you sift through and just make more health-conscious choices. So, okay, so what I'm going to be covering are 5 tips to really get you to be a master label reader. So really it's about being aware of exactly what's inside of the food that you're eating. If you can't recognize an ingredient, chances are your body can't either. If it's some type of chemical, you really want to try to stay away from it, because what happens is if you put a chemical inside the body doesn't know what to do with it, so it's going to start to push it away, and it pushes it into cells that help to store energy, such as fat cells. So if you have a lot of chemicals that go inside the body, they're going to get stored into fat cells. Your body's going to have a hard time losing fat, because now it can't recognize some of the signals in fat. So good incentive to stay away from the chemicals if you don't want to gain weight. Nutrition labels, so when you look at a traditional label, what the first thing you want to look at is the serving size. A lot of different companies, what they'll do is they'll reduce the serving size and make it super small. So you'll look at like a box and you'll say, it says 10 servings on there, and you're like, it's so small, how is there 10 servings in there? Really, the marketing scam is they want to appease you and make sure that you understand that there's like a small amount of calories in there, even if it's the whole box itself. So take a look at the serving size to start. Calories, what I like to look at are the calories from fat. So this label, right, has 190 calories. Calories from fat is 150, so primarily that food source is fat. Does that make sense? So recognizing that it's not just about the calories, it's also the calories from fat. There's more calories in fat than there is in protein, there is in carbohydrates. Total fat, you want to take a look at that. Saturated fat should really come from natural sources like coconut oils or grass-fed meat. It shouldn't be from hydrogenated oils, and we'll kind of sift through that as well. And a couple things I want to touch on are, again, sodium. That's another key thing that I would look at as well, but we'll kind of sift through them in the next couple slides. So, like I said, serving size. If you guys take a look at a lot of like the Cokes now, you'll see that the bottle has a lot more sugar in it, and it's because they've changed the serving size. They're now having to change the serving size on most labels like ice cream and Coke, because when you take like a bottle of Coke, for instance, and you look at the serving size, traditionally it says 2. How many of you guys pretty much drink the whole thing anyways, though, right? So it's really just 1 serving. So they're trying to change that stuff. And the same thing with ice cream. If you look at a pint of ice cream, I think there's 4 servings in there. How many of you guys, how long does it take you to get through a pint of ice cream, right? Not very long. So they're starting to change the serving size on those so you can start to recognize how much sugar you're really taking in and how many calories, because that's what it comes down to. And again, I was talking about the chances of the marketing changing. The serving size is really high now, because what they want to do is make it more appeasing to you. So they'll put maybe 10 servings in a box and it says 100 calories, and you're like, oh, there's only 100 calories in there. But if you eat the whole box, guess what? There's 1,000 calories in there. So really pay attention to the serving size. I think that's all I wanted to cover on there. I've noticed it though, like I said, on Coke and on ice cream are the first 2 products that they've started to change there. So what is a good serving size? How do you know if something that you're looking at, some type of package, has a good serving size? Always go per calorie. So 40 calories per serving, for instance, is considered low. That's a low amount of calories, so it's not that bad. Versus 100 calories per serving, that's about moderate. And then if you go anywhere between 400 calories, like if you look at like a lean cuisine meal, I don't even think it's lean cuisine, but a lot of the frozen meals, for instance, they have like 400 to 600 calories. That's a high calorie meal. Does anyone ever try to calculate how many calories they take in a day? That is something, yes, that is something you really want to do. Just take one day and just log everything you eat. You would be so surprised how many calories you're taking in. And the thing is, you can start to break down those calories between fat, protein, and carbohydrate and really get a better idea of, is my diet heavy on fats? Is it heavy on carbohydrates, or is it heavy on protein? You'll also start to recognize and become aware of how many calories you're taking in on a day-to-day basis. So good serving size, I would say stay between the low and the moderate calories. Even if you look at salad dressings, some of the salad dressings, for 2 tablespoons, it'll say like 40 to 60 calories. That's good, versus if you look at some of the really rich dressings, I think they're like 160 to 200 calories, and that would be on the higher end. So you want to go more on the lower end. So that way, if you're having like a big salad, for instance, you have low calories, but you have a lot of food there. So check the ingredients. So how many of you guys know the rule that you're supposed to walk around the grocery store and not walk in the middle, right? Because the stuff that's in the middle has a lot of chemicals and additives in it to make the shelf life a whole lot longer, such as the hydrogenated oils and other unrecognizable names. So the chemicals, they really create a long-term toxic effect on the body. Because like I said, what happened, well, I think I used this example last time. If there's a baby sitting across the room and the baby was chewing a toy and the toy had paint chips coming off of it, what would you do? You take the toy away, right? Because there's no calories in the paint chips per se, but there's chemicals in there. And you know the chemicals are dangerous. The same thing with food. If there's a lot of chemicals in it, yes, the FDA may have approved it, but if you're eating 5, 6, 7 servings of something that has a lot of chemicals in it, you're now creating a toxic load on the body. The liver will help to detox it, but it'll start pushing it into fat cells as well. So it'll make it harder for your body to lose weight, and you'll start to create hormone imbalances in the body. So a good rule to live by, if you can't spell it, you can't pronounce it, chances are your body's not going to be able to recognize it as well, so stay away from it. And I think about that with pharmaceuticals as well. If you're on a medication more than 12 weeks, you really want to recognize, why is my body, why do I need to take this medication? Because it is a chemical and it does have a toxic effect on the body. A lot of the medications out there have never been studied more than 12 weeks at a time. And the reason that is because the long-term health effects will actually cause the drug to get off the market, so they never study them longer than 12 weeks. So again, it's a chemical, it does have a toxic effect on the body, and you want to try to stay away from that stuff. Okay, reduced and low fat. I know you guys run into those labels a lot. They mean 2 different things. Just because something says it's reduced doesn't mean it's low. So we'll go through this. If it says something like low sodium or less sodium, it doesn't always mean that it's good for you. Soy sauce, for instance. If you look at soy sauce and it says 25% less sodium, well, a typical serving size of the soy sauce has anywhere from 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it per serving size. And if you go 25% less, it's still going to have anywhere from 500 to 750 milligrams of sodium. But the daily allowance of what we consider to be good for you is never over anywhere from 1,300 to 2,000 milligrams of sodium. So if you're having 2-3 servings of soy sauce that says less sodium in it, you're still going above and beyond the amount of sodium that your body should be taking in. Reduced fat usually comes with a higher number of calories. So a lot of people have like the nut butters and it says reduced fat on it. Do you guys ever look at the back ingredients and what it says on it? There's a lot of fractionated oils in there and hydrogenated oils. Somebody has Peter Pan. Yes. Yeah, this is a good example. Okay. Sorry, whose is this?
It's mine.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, like oh my gosh, I can't even read this. But it's partially hydrogenated cottonseed oils in here. But it says no high fructose corn syrup, but it still has hydrogenated oils in it. And I believe on this, if you look online with a lot of the peanut butter products, it'll say 0 grams of trans fat. That still has trans fat in it though, because it has partially hydrogenated oils in it. But you really want to recognize some of the ingredients in there and stay away from them. And just because it says reduced fat doesn't mean that it's always good for you. Same thing with reduced fat crackers or reduced fat yogurt, for instance. What they do is they take the fat out, but what do they add instead? Sugar, exactly. So now you're having a high amount of sugar, but you have less fat. And the sugar itself will have more of a dangerous effect on your body. So you always want to go for just something that has a regular amount of fat in it. I remember my dad, he had an intern from Germany, I think it was 15 or 20 years ago. He came to stay with us and he went to the grocery store with us. And he was laughing because he said, you know, the low fat and the reduced fat, do people know that's not working? Like, I mean, think about that though. And I mean, over in Germany, they have a lot of heavy fats in their diet, but they get a lot of exercise as well. So the reduced fat, it has the same number of calories. The only difference is instead of it having the high fat, you've got some hydrogenated oils and you also have a lot of sugar in it. Okay, so this is what we were just talking about with 0 grams of trans fats. This is a label from Thin Mints. You guys know the amazing Girl Scout cookies. Sorry. It says on the box, it says 0 grams of trans fat, but the way you know if there is trans fat in it is by looking at the label. So just because something says 0 grams of trans fat, it just means that it has less than 1 gram or 0.5 grams per serving. So again, the marketing tactic is let's just lower the serving size so that we have less than 1 gram of trans fat and we can still recognize it as being trans fat free. So if you look at the label here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but in the ingredients it says sugar and partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, such as soybean or cottonseed, palm, or palm kernel oils. So whenever it says partially hydrogenated, that's trans fat itself. So even if it says trans fat free, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. There are some products though that do say trans fat free or 0 grams of trans fat. If you look in the ingredients and it doesn't have any partially hydrogenated oils, it's trans fat free. It's normal, it's natural. Okay. And then you can also recognize here for Thin Mints with the sugars. So it says 10 grams of sugars and essentially it's creating 20 grams of carbohydrates. How many grams of sugar is enough to spike the blood sugar level in one serving? Does anyone know?
4.
Yes, 4, exactly. Your body can't recognize anything that's basically under 5 grams of sugar. So if you look at pasta sauce, for instance, pasta sauce like ragu, sorry to call it out, but it has, I think there's like 15 to 20 grams of sugar in there. So there's a lot of sugar in there, and that's as much as, you know, the Thin Mints when you think about it. Your body can't recognize anything that's under 5 grams of sugar for a serving. My twin and I, we have a gene that's called hereditary fructose intolerance. We've never been able to have sugar or digest sugar. Our body just doesn't make the enzyme to break it down. So we know if we're looking at pasta sauce, for instance, we can't do anything that's over 5 grams of sugar, otherwise we get really, really sick. So the best way to recognize it by looking at the sugars is understanding that your body's not going to recognize anything under 5 grams, so that would be okay. A lot of yogurts as well. I use a really good example. If you guys look at the Kickstart Mountain Dew, you know, the tall cans that they're advertising now, there's less sugar in that can than there is in some of the fruit cup yogurts. There's more sugar in the fruit cup yogurts. And that's because they're adding more sugar in it for one, and for two, the serving size is a lot different. So if you're looking at a serving size with the Kickstart cans, it says 2 servings. I think they've switched it over to 1, but there's still less sugar in that. The moral of the story is don't go and opt for the Kickstart in the morning versus yogurt, but really recognize what's in your yogurt. And it's probably better that you add your own fruit to it, because a lot of it has the jellies in it that has even more sugar. Okay, so does everyone understand 0 grams of trans fat and how to recognize if it really does have trans fat? Yes?
Is that the only type of trans fat? Is the hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated?
Yeah, they're starting to change some of the names of them. Fractionated. Instead of saying partially hydrogenated, they may say fractionated cottonseed. We'll go through oils real quickly just because I think it'll help you guys. The oils you want to stay away from are soybean oil, cottonseed oils, palm or palm kernel oils. They've all been hydrogenated. And I say canola oil. The ones that I would stick with are grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and olive oil.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why are soybeans so good for you and soybean oil so bad for you?
It's the way that they process it and break it down. A lot of it's been genetically modified, and whenever you genetically modify anything, it changes the chemical composition of it. We'll look at, for instance, margarine versus butter. If you look at butter, the ingredients are just cream and salt, versus margarine, which kind of tastes like butter, has a ton of different chemicals and hydrogenated oils in it. And it's really the way that they've broken it down and processed it. So
you would say to stick more with butter than margarine?
yeah. Honestly, rule of thumb, I would say don't ever eat anything that has more than 5 ingredients in it. If it has more than 5 ingredients in it, there's probably a bunch of junk in it. So also natural flavorings, I believe it's not in there. Whenever it says natural flavorings in it, you can bet that there's almost 2,000 different chemicals in that. So natural flavorings are not so natural. And a lot of times, a lot of people have gluten allergies as well. The natural flavorings has gluten in it. Yeah.
What is that shorthand for?
Natural flavorings?
Yeah.
It's basically shorthand for there's more than 2,000 different chemicals in here, but we're just going to stick it under one name. There's almost 10. They find in the grocery store, the average grocery store has almost 30,000 different chemicals in the food sources, all in the middle aisles. So rice-a-roni, for instance, it says natural flavorings. There's almost 500 different chemicals that they add into it. And you're like, oh, maybe it's just some spices, but I mean, they're really adding a lot of chemicals. So in here, what's that?
What oils did you say were good again?
Coconut oil, grapeseed oil, and olive oil.
And you said soybean oil, cottonseed,
Cottonseed,
oil, and what was the other one?
palm, and palm kernel. Sunflower oil, I'm kind of indecisive with. It all has to do with the omega-6 versus omega-3 ratios. So omega-3 is pro or anti-inflammatory? Does anyone remember? Omega-3 is pro or is anti-inflammatory. There's no inflammation associated, versus omega-6 has a lot of inflammation. So the palm kernel oils, those all have a lot of omega-6 in them versus omega-3. You really want to have a diet that's heavy in omega-3 versus omega-6. Right now in America, our ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, so the good to the bad, is 1 to 20. So we're getting way more omega-6, which is not good for us. That's in things like processed cookies or cereals, processed breads. So you want to go more towards natural sources such as fish, the good olive oils, and the coconut oils, which have the omega-3s.
And then vegetable oils right out.
Stay away from, yeah. Whenever it says vegetable oil, you're like, what's really in it? I wonder. Because a lot of it is just a ton of processed oils. I was also going to say, for people that have gluten intolerance or gluten allergies, caramel color is gluten itself whenever they add caramel color to things. And you're like, well, what has caramel color? If you look at oatmeal, rolled oats, a big package of it is just 100% rolled oats. If you get the individual packets from Quaker, it says added caramel color. I don't know why they do, but that's gluten in there. So, and oats should be gluten-free.
So you should get steel cut oats.
Steel cut's good. I do the instant stuff as long as it doesn't have anything that's added in it. So, okay.
Oh, I was wondering about the olive oil. Are there differences between?
Yeah, just go for cold pressed. Just cold pressed, expeller cold pressed. Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes if you go in Publix and they have the buy one get one deal, and it's like olive oil and it's like $2. I don't believe that olive oil should be $2, so it's probably not a good one for you. That's kind of a good rule of thumb to go by too.
Usually like the one, they have one that's like $7.50.
That's perfect, yeah. Yeah, a lot of them that have been imported from Italy are really good as well. Okay. Okay, whole grain. So I know like a lot of times in magazines and on articles they always talk about how you should have whole grains. A lot of the whole grains have been processed and they've been pulverized, meaning that they're starting to take out like the good components of it. So if you look at like white rice versus brown rice, right? So white rice, what they've done is they've taken out the fiber and they've created this, basically this starchy piece of rice, versus brown rice, which still has the fiber in it, which means your blood sugar is not going to spike as much. So again, always going for brown rice, right, over white rice. The same thing with whole grain. A lot of this stuff has been broken down now, so they're taking a lot of the fiber out of it. They may add some extra fiber into the bread itself before they put it on the shelf. But this is a really good rule to think about. If you take flour and you take water and you put them together and you can make paper machete, then essentially what do you think bread is? It's basically paper machete, right? And it's going to spike your blood sugar levels pretty high as well. So bread, I don't think I've had bread in well over a year, just because I don't like the way that it spikes the blood sugar levels in me, and I can recognize that. But a lot of it's really been, it's been pulverized, has been taken, all the good components have been taken out of it. So don't trust when it says something like whole grain. And a lot of times it'll say whole grain and you look on the back of it and most of it's corn. And it's really been processed. So has anyone ever tried to make their own bread? You guys like it? Is it pretty good? I've never tried it.
It's good, but it goes bad really quick because it doesn't have any chemicals in it.
That's good. That's a good thing then.
It's moldy real quick. If you don't eat it within the first couple of days,
Yeah,
it'll go bad.
I could see that, yeah. Question?
Yeah, I had a question about, my boyfriend and I were talking about this last night, because I love graham crackers, and I've always thought that they were like a healthy snack, but I don't really know, because it says whole grains on it, and then you
Yeah.
look at the back, and there's not that many ingredients, but
Mhm.
it's like graham flour, like what?
Yeah, it's just basically sugar, flour, and water together. Yeah, which is paper machete that's sweet. So, you know what's really good though? If you take flax seeds and you ground them, and you, I used to do this all the time, you can mix in like some eggs. If you don't like eggs, you could do chia seeds if you're vegan too, and water. And you can make like a flat surface with it, put some herbs or nuts on it, put it into either a dehydrator or in the oven, and you can make thin little flax crackers. Yeah, and put your sugar on that, I guess.
So is there a good bread to eat or no?
No, I'm not a fan of bread, honestly.
How about Ezekiel bread?
Ezekiel bread is good. I will give you that. It is good. For people that are gluten intolerant like myself, I can't have it. They do have the Udis, UDI, which is gluten-free, and that's really good as well. They make that with like brown rice, so that's pretty good. But you just have to be really careful with bread because a lot of it just has the chemicals in it and the added components, and they'll just put a ton of sugar in it as well.
So what about like nut flours, like almond flour?
Those are wonderful. I have a really good recipe. I used to do dinner with the doc in my office where I'd have a bunch of new clients. They would come in and I would serve them dinner, teach them about chiropractic and the spine and nerve system. And I made this really good pumpkin flax muffin, and I can't tell you how many people wanted the recipe for it. If you guys ever email me, I will send you recipes where you can use like almond flour and coconut flour. That stuff's really good for you. And it won't spike the blood sugar. So those are good. There's also another one, one of my clients told me about, grapeseed flour is a new one, and apparently it's pretty good as well. Okay, so don't trust whole grain because chances are it's probably corn or it's probably just flour and water together. It's a loose term. A lot of the times the FDA doesn't even regulate the terms. Again, avoiding artificial colors and flavoring. So again, if it says natural flavorings, most times it's just a bunch of chemicals under big umbrella. If you think about an apple, for instance, would you artificially create an apple? No, you'd have an apple. But a lot of times if you look at Pop-Tarts that have like the strawberry, most of it's not strawberry, right? It's just a bunch of chemicals that taste like strawberries. So eating whole-based foods is really the best way to go. I know we all know that, but just pay attention to the ingredients. Crystal Light says natural in it, and it says, if you look on the back of it, it says natural flavorings. It's just a bunch of chemicals, and if it's like lemon flavored, chances are half of it's not even lemon. So You're better off just adding your own lemon with it. The FDA doesn't really regulate a lot of the artificial colorings. Some of the companies are starting to use natural sources like beets. They'll use beet coloring. Goldfish, for instance, used to have red 40 in it. It doesn't anymore. It has beet juice concentrate to get the red flavoring of it. But you just have to really pay attention. And a lot of the same chemicals that are used in your cosmetic products, ladies, are also used in foods. So you're essentially putting into your body what you're putting on your skin, which I can't imagine looking composition anyways, you know, like that, the eye makeup or something. So just be careful with that. And a lot of the artificial colorings, the reason the companies are starting to change over and use like beet juice concentrate is because a lot of them are being linked to cancer. So, and you think, you know, in small amounts it's not going to hurt me, but if you're eating this stuff day after day after day, if you eat the crackers that have all the food colorings in them, day after day, you're just essentially creating a position for your body to develop cancer over time. Okay, sodium. I know we talked a little bit about sodium. I want to really focus on sodium in meat products. So when you go out to eat, chances are almost every restaurant uses Cisco as their source for getting meat. What they do is they need to preserve the meat to make it last longer, and they do that with salt. The salt is not like a natural sea salt. It's salt that's been heated to about 1200 degrees Fahrenheit and stuck into this meat to get it to stay on the shelf longer. So a lot of the meats that we're eating have a ton of salt in them. So if you're adding more salt to your food, you're creating you know, a very salty environment for your body. Your body's going to start storing a lot of water as well. Foods that are high in sodium, again, they have the longer shelf life. They'll also throw off your body's potassium levels, so you start to have the muscle cramping and spasms. It'll start to elevate things like blood pressure, and you might feel tired all the time, and it's just because your body's trying to process through all the sodium. So if you're tired all the time, what makes you think you want to exercise when you're tired, right? So if you just reduce your sodium, you're going to start to have a lot more energy as well. But if you look at chicken, for instance, a lot of the frozen chicken that they're basically the grilled pieces, they have a lot of cornstarch in them and a lot of sodium. So even though you think you're just getting natural chicken that's like the little strips, a lot of times it has a ton of sodium in it and a lot of natural flavors and cornstarch in it. And it's just to get the pieces to not stick together and to hold on to the shelf life a whole lot longer too. So you're better off, again, just buying chicken and just cutting it up, cooking it, and freezing it yourself.
You said the salt thing that they do that's only with restaurants, not with the grocery stores.
They can do it in the grocery store depending on if it's chicken that's bought in like the frozen section that's already pre-packaged. You know, like the little chicken strips or the little fajita strips, for instance, those have a lot of salt in them. Yeah, the Tyson does. If you get just traditional, like you go to Publix and you just buy their chicken breast, that doesn't have it in there. Yeah. So opt for the more natural sources of chicken.
Don't they like inject them with a sodium solution?
They do. If you look at the bag chicken, like you go in the frozen section in the bags, they have a lot of sodium. Yesterday I was buying chicken. Yes, lunch meat is classic for having a ton of sodium in it. And again, they're trying to increase the shelf life. A lot of the deli lunch meat that's in the packages too, it's been doused in ammonia just so you don't get bacteria in the packages. So another reason to stay away from the packaged stuff and go for the fresh. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of lunch meat because if you do look in the ingredients, you're going to find a lot of stuff you can't even recognize. And of course, we don't really see that when we go buy some of the lunch meats. But boar's head, of course, is one of the better ones to eat, but you really just want to make your own meat. Okay. So how many milligrams do we say of sodium?
1,300 to 2,000.
Good job. Yes, 1,300 to 2,000. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, if you guys log this stuff just one day, you'd be surprised.
And you'd be scared.
And scared. No, you'd be okay. But if you track how much sugar you're taking in on a day-to-day basis, you would really be surprised on how much is in foods. Artificial sweeteners, so anything that's in those little sugar packets that's not natural, stay away from it, stay away from it, stay away from it. That's the best thing I can tell you. It's the same thing with the baby with the paint chips. Just because it doesn't have any calories in it doesn't mean that it's not chemicals and that it's not toxic for your body. Aspartame seems to be the one that's getting the most attention right now because it literally took the FDA about 80 different tries to try to push that stuff across into our food sources. What aspartame does is it increases the shelf life and it makes things sweeter. They're starting to add aspartame to cow's milk now. Isn't that crazy?
Even sugarless gum.
Sugarless gum is,
I mean, even non-sugarless, sugared gum. they have
yeah,
aspartame.
exactly. My sister and I always talk about this. We're like, we could be millionaires because really all the marketing that says it's sugar-free has sugar alcohol in it, and that's not technically sugar-free. And if we get sick on that, we could sue them, but we laugh about it. So any of that stuff will start to cause some type of spike in your blood sugar levels. Gum, for instance, that can even do it as well. Go for the natural sources. Sometimes if you look at juices, like the juices have extra sugar added to them, you're better off just eating the fruit in general, right? You're a whole lot better off. And a lot of the fruit juices are really popular now. I can't think of the names of them. Bare Naked, I think they're called. A lot of them have been heated up to like a really high temperature to make sure that there's no bacteria in it. And then they just cool it and they add natural flavors to make it now taste like whatever it was supposed to taste like before it was heated. So be careful with those. You're better off eating the fruit. High fructose corn syrup, it spikes your blood sugar level twice as fast as regular sugar does. There's no fiber component into it, and it's starting to contribute to a ton of issues as well. They've linked aspartame with at least 35 different health conditions like lupus and diabetes, and you name it, it's pretty much linked to it. So, natural flavors, we talked about this. Here are some of the ones that are common. So monosodium glutamate, which is MSG, most people I think recognize or know that one now. A lot of the organic, like cracker packages, it'll say organic on it. You're like, oh, it must be good. But it still has MSG in it, so dangerous. Be careful with those. Hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Some of the sodium caseinate is a good one. Autolyzed yeast is another one, or yeast extract. Those are all chemicals for natural flavors. So, okay.
What about the flavor enhancers that you, I don't know what it's called, I've never used it, but it's you buy it in a little bottle and you push it into your water.
Oh,
Amino or something.
I've seen those.
Mio.
Mio.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at the ingredients on it?
I've never tried it, but everything's like, oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
You get tired of drinking your water, you can just flavor your water.
Yeah, you're better off taking some blueberries or strawberries and cutting them up and sticking them in your water. Those products, they have like red 40, blue 90, and I mean, they're all chemicals in it. And then natural flavors, because we're going to put some chemicals in it to make it taste like strawberry. It's like having a strawberry without or a strawberry Pop-Tart without the calories and adding it to water. It's like chemicals, you know? Same thing. So the Mios are not very good. If you look at the back of them, it says natural flavors on them. So I know there's a lot more in there.
Water all day long, and I've been tempted to buy it, but I had.
Yeah, I would stick with water. Just stick some fruit in it. Slice up some fruit and stick it in there.
I do lemon.
Or that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But other than that, it's just plain old water.
Yeah. Do you guys feel really restricted right now? I'm so sorry.
It's like you're free to eat anything.
Don't worry, I will give you guys some things to eat. Natural. Okay, so natural is the most loose term, I swear, in the FDA. Natural is just a marker on a product. They can say natural on the Crystal Light, for instance, and a lot of that is just chemicals. So the FDA they've never objected the use of natural on anything. So you could have basically a bunch of chemicals in a product and just put natural on it. Natural used to mean that they would there was some form of natural living egg in it, meaning they had a chicken egg that they derived a chemical composition from it and they stuck it into the product, as long as it came from a chicken egg to begin with. So, but really natural is permitted on any product, and it's just a loose term. So don't get fooled by anything that says just natural. Cage-free eggs. So how many of you guys have a hard time in the egg aisle like I do. This is pretty good. When it says cage-free, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's still natural and roaming. So this would be cage-free, for instance. Chickens are not in the cage, versus a chicken in the cage would have, it wouldn't say cage-free. But what you want to look for is pasture raised, which is over on the right-hand side there. So when it's pasture raised, basically the chickens are out in the open, they get the high levels of vitamin D. From research that I've looked into, the chickens that are in the factory that have no access to sunlight, they have at least 40% less vitamin D and omegas into their eggs versus a pasture-raised or free-roaming chicken. And you can tell even when you look at the yolk, right? The color of the yolk is completely different. So go for pasture-raised. Cage-free doesn't necessarily mean anything. And when it says organic, they could have been fed organic high fructose corn syrup. What? I don't know. I don't even know how to touch that one. Yeah.
What about those like egg substitutes, like the egg beaters?
The egg beaters, I would stick with, if anything, egg whites. The egg beaters have like little pieces of pepper in them, but then a bunch of chemicals. So, yeah. Don't be afraid of the cholesterol from eggs too. Your body's so smart. It knows why it's producing cholesterol. I have a couple of patients in my office that have been vegan for 18 years, and they have high cholesterol. How does that make sense? It doesn't. The body's really smart. It knows to produce cholesterol for a certain reason. So if your body's trying to fight off some type of inflammation, some inflammatory property, let's say like low back pain, there's a lot of inflammation there. The body's going to spike the cholesterol levels because it needs it to heal that kind of tissue. My mom, for instance, she went in for blood work, and her cholesterol levels were high, but the week before she had a cold and she had the flu. So her body was using the cholesterol to try to heal that tissue. The next month we checked her cholesterol levels, completely normal. So typical American, you go into the doctors and the doctor would say, oh, well, you need a cholesterol medication for that, when really the body knows exactly what to do at exactly the right time. The body isn't going to hang on to the cholesterol from eggs if it doesn't need it. The adrenal gland in your body produces all the cholesterol it needs. So I could go home and eat 25 eggs a day and not have high cholesterol levels because the body knows how to get rid of that stuff. Unless I have a lot of inflammation in my body because I am eating 25 eggs and is trying to fight that off. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes?
How about the like pasture-fed meat products?
Those are good.
Somebody told me like they only have to let them out for 30 minutes at a time.
You got to research the company of where it comes from. That's why it's better, we're in Gainesville, to get anything that's local or from a farmer here because you really know where it's coming from. We're lucky from that standpoint. What was I going to say? Oh, on chicken, when you buy chicken and it says no use of antibiotics ever or no use of hormones, and then if you notice on the bottom with the little star, it says the FDA prohibits any use of additives like hormones or antibiotics. Yeah, the FDA can't use it, so it's just marketing on the package itself. You're like, oh, it must be good because it doesn't have the antibiotics and it doesn't have the hormones. Well, the FDA says you can't use it anyway, so it's just a marketing tactic. Yeah. They're so tricky. Okay, factors that increase your risk for coronary artery disease. And the reason I put this in here is because my aunt, who lives in Las Vegas, just went in for surgery because one of her arteries was blocked by 60%. Her copay, by the way, was $20,000. Yeah, so take care of yourself. Be preventative because you don't want to have that $20,000 bill, nor do you want to have surgery later on. And she has really good insurance. She works for some of the casinos for like 20 years. So, okay, so factors that contribute to coronary artery disease or heart disease. So weight, poor diet, sedentary lifestyle. So if you guys are sitting all day, make sure you get up and walk around. Sitting can be as bad for you as smoking on your body because your body's not moving. It's not moving around. So inflammation caused from poor foods that we're eating in our diet, right, with a lot of the chemicals. Caffeine, aspartame is key for coronary artery disease as well because it creates an inflammatory condition inside the body. And of course, smoking. Okay, so let's kind of go through some of these packages. So the typical American will eat about 50 teaspoons of sugar a day. And a lot of that sugar comes from all of this stuff here. So if you look on the back label, remember how many grams of sugar should it be under so that your body doesn't spike the blood sugar levels? 5, right, exactly, good. So
Not on the label, but per serving.
per serving,
Per serving.
yes. You could have 10 servings to something and it says 5. So the orange juice, it's better to eat the oranges, right? Coke, that describes how many cubes of sugar are in each from the can all the way to the liter bottle. So you can start to see how much sugar you're actually taking in per day. Breads, a lot of the pasta sauces, for instance, have a ton of sugar in them. I think Hunt's has the least amount of sugar. Serving size, this is a good one. So that ketchup over there has more sugar per serving size than a serving size of ice cream does. So always look at the serving size. So you're getting way more sugar in ketchup than you are in the serving size of ice cream. And then a lot of the cereals. The way that you read cereal, it says high in vitamin D, for instance, but if you turn over the label always lists off the ingredients to how much is in it. So if there's a lot of whole grain, that'll be first. Typically, a lot of those, the marketing scam on those, it'll say high amounts of vitamin D, and you're like, oh yes, must have a lot of vitamin D, which I need. But if you look at the bottom of the ingredients, the last labels say vitamin D. That means that that's the last ingredient that they have in there because there's very little of it in there. So recognizing if it says high levels of antioxidants, but if you look at the back of the package and it's the last thing it's listed off, it's not really a high level. Okay. These all have sources of trans fats in them, even though it's labeled as trans fat free or having 0 grams of trans fat. Again, that's per serving, right? So Girl Scout cookies, we looked at that one. A lot of the Nutri-Grain bars or just protein or fruit bars in general, a lot of those have like a coating over it, if you notice. A lot of that's just like rancid oils in there, so.
See, that's why I started buying these.
Can I peek at it?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is actually a really good one.
They're expensive too.
Of course they are.
And my son loves cereal bars and stuff, so I bought these and he actually likes them. So to me, it's worth spending,
Yeah.
the $1+ for each
Yeah.
bar.
This is a really good example
He's
too.
gonna eat.
It says 50% daily value of antioxidants, vitamins A, C, and E, and if you look on the back, it lists vitamins separately because they're all infused into it. And then also, it says very low sodium, and it is. If you look at it, there's only 20 milligrams of sodium in there, which is awesome. Most of these bars have at least 200 milligrams of sodium in it. So that's a really good thing to look at in there. And then the fiber, it's a good amount of fiber. Sugars are a little bit high. There's 14 grams of sugar in here, but at least they're labeling it as being 1 serving size, so you know how many to get in there.
And I
So
think
it's
because of the chocolate and there's cherries in there, dried cherries.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of the dried fruit that you'll pick up at the grocery store, it has a lot of added sugars in them, so make sure you look on the back at the label. Another thing I would look for on nuts, when you buy a package of nuts, most of them, if you turn it over, it has cottonseed oil or added oils into it. Don't ever choose a nut package that has that stuff in it, because you're essentially eating a bunch of rancid oils in there trying to get the benefit of the walnut or the almond. So just get something that's dry roasted and salted. Most times it's sea salted.
The last time you were here, you said you like the Target brand?
Yes.
And the big.
Yeah, if you go to Target, they sell this big tub. I think there's 3 to 5 pounds of nuts in there. It's really cheap. And it doesn't have any of the added oils in there. But if you buy the little packages, they do. So, and you'd think it would be the same thing, but it's not. So pick out the nuts that don't have the added oils into them. For one, you won't have the added calories. For two, your body will actually recognize that fat source. Yeah, but a lot of these protein bars, it'll say like good serving of fiber, but there's a lot of sugar in them. So just be really careful with those, and also the trans fats. Popcorn in these bags all have trans fats in them. So even though it says like the serving size is 2 cups in this big bag of popcorn, that's enough that it's under 1 gram of trans fat. But the whole bag itself is coated in rancid oils. and with the hydrogenated oils.
So if you have a child at home that loves popcorn, should you make your own popcorn?
Yes.
at home?
And you can do that.
Popcorn?
Yeah, you can do that, or you can get, there's a container where you can put them in and put coconut oil in it. And the coconut oil you can heat to a really high temperature, and it tastes really good. So, and then you can add your own seasoning or flavorings on there. A lot of people that like cheese on their popcorn but don't want to add all the little cheese flavorings, you know, the ones you can pour over popcorn, because there's a lot of chemicals and a lot of sodium in those. One thing I would recommend is nutritional yeast. Do you guys ever hear of it? It tastes like cheese. It's really good. Nutritional yeast. A lot of people that are vegetarian or vegan and opt out of the cheeses, they'll mix stuff in with that. Yeah.
Comment about the popcorn. I've actually made popcorn with olive oil,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really good. You don't even really need butter on it.
Oh yeah, I believe that. You can put herbs on it too afterwards. It's really good.
Parsley or oregano?
Yeah. Celery
Celery.
too. Oh yeah. I can tell you one thing that I experiment the most with are herbs. And I didn't start doing that until recently. But like dill, for instance, I mean, all that stuff is so good and it's so easy to find.
Well, dill I've always put in potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of doing some of the flavorings and stuff that are, like rice-a-roni, instead of buying the rice-a-roni box, make your own rice and then put some herbs on it with some olive oil. It's really good. You'll probably not want to go back either. We'll go through some of the fats, though, that we were talking about earlier. So extra virgin olive oil, cook that on low heat or use it on salads. Coconut oils, those are really good. Avocado oil and walnut oil are some good ones to experiment with as well. These are all good sources of fats, like the grass-fed meat. It's not corn-fed, but it's grass-fed, meaning you're going to get a good omega-3 ratio, so it's going to be a whole lot better for your body.
And you said that the coconut oil has a higher rancid rate than regular olive oil.
Olive oil will go rancid at a lower temperature or at a higher temperature versus coconut oil won't.
Okay.
So you want to bake with coconut oil, or even if you saute stuff?
It was coconut, it was canola oil.
Canola, yeah. Canola itself is already rancid in the package, the way that they've even processed it.
Yeah, I think it was the canola oil.
Yeah.
What the heck is a canola anyway?
Yeah, exactly. What is a canola? It came from Canada. Sometime like 50 years ago, they decided that they were running low on butter, so they did that between margarine and canola, and they marketed the heck out of it. My poor parents, I've gone into their pantry and I've just thrown that stuff out. I feel so bad for them. But it's good. That's how I want them to live longer and I want them to live a healthy life. So you just replace it and you'd be surprised. Yeah.
What's the, what about ghee? Like, what is that to butter? And
It's
getting popular. I see
It
in
is.
places now. So how is that better than butter?
I would say it's about the same. It just really depends on the processing of it. There's some butters that have been highly processed, but ghee is really good to try and see if you like it. It has a lot of natural vitamins in it because it hasn't been stripped out. So, and in terms of sugar, I think we went over this last time, agave versus maple or versus regular sugar. Agave is no different than high fructose corn syrup. I'm sorry. It's just a marketing thing. So go for maple or go for natural sugars. Okay. Nutrition-wise, do you guys feel empowered? Do you feel like you can't eat anything now? I'm sorry. But honestly, just go to the grocery store and just try to use the stuff around in the perimeter. Because you can make anything. You make chicken. It takes a little bit longer, but I do all my cooking on one day and then I just freeze it or I put it in the fridge. It's a whole lot easier, and you're going to have way more energy and not feel lethargic, especially at work. If you feel like you're always run down, that 2-3 o'clock hits, either I need caffeine or some type of Coke or something. It's usually because the food that you're eating isn't giving you any energy.
What do they do to canned vegetables?
Canned vegetables, they usually add a lot of sodium.
Okay.
Yeah, or additives because it needs a longer shelf life.
Okay.
If you think about that, like a can of green beans on the shelf can be there for, a really long time. versus if you take, the green beans and the regular vegetable oil, that'll go bad in about a week. So.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that's all they had was canned. If you couldn't find fresh, you had canned. And now I wouldn't touch a can of vegetables if I'm starving. I'd be eating a gross.
Yeah.
They're gross.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really mushy because they've just been doused in.
Look appetizing. Their coloring is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them are adding colors to them too. A lot of the salmon, for instance, if you buy farm raised salmon versus fresh or Atlantic salmon, what they do is they add coloring into it because it's a lot of it doesn't have the omega-3 ratios in it, and a lot of it's just been stripped away. So they start to add colorings to it. So try to get the fresh form. It's more expensive, but like I said, you don't want to be like my aunt who just had surgery paying a $20,000 copay because she didn't eat the right foods, for the past, 10, 20 years. So it's better to pay up front and to get the good food, and also you'll have way more energy, which is never a bad thing. Okay, the one thing I like to teach you guys is about the spine and the nerve system, since that seems to be my favorite part ever. But the way that I want you to understand your body is that you can have the best foods, you can have all the organic foods in the world, you can have the best diet, but unless your spine and nerve system functions the right way, a lot of that stuff's not going to help your body to function and heal the way that it's supposed to. So your brain essentially controls everything in the body, right? And the brain communicates with the body through the spinal cord, and it sends all the information out the nerves to all the organs, cells, and tissues in the body, telling it how to function and how to heal. So if you look at an embryo, for instance, this would be a couple weeks old. What happens in the embryo, you see this line here? That is the spine and the nerve system in here. And that's the first root system in your body, and that's where you start to branch off and get all the organs from. So the nerves really control everything. And so any type of pressure or damage onto the nerve system can start to create miscommunication. So what I look at are two things. I want to make sure your spine is straight from front to back, so there's no pressure, no damage on the nerves. And from the side, you want to make sure you have a nice curve in the neck here. A lot of people that sit in front of the computer, you guys have that forward head shift where you start going like this. That's when you start to lose the curve in there and you start to see how it straightens. That'll start shutting down the nerves in the neck here that go up into the back of the head, causing things like headaches, or into the shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. You'll start to get the numbing and tingling when you're typing, for instance. Also into the low back, you can start to have any aches or pains into your legs as well. But your spine and nerve system, the nerves in the back here, they go around and they house and they surround the intestines. So again, if you don't have the best foods or you have a poor diet, you start to damage those areas, then your body starts creating a foundation for where you can start to have sickness. So you want to have a nice healthy curve in the neck so there's no pressure, no damage, no degeneration. Skip through here. So this would be a good way of indicating if there is damage on the nerves. So how many of you guys have been trying to lose weight, for instance, and you just feel like you've eaten the best foods, you've started an exercise routine, but you're not losing weight? It could be because your spine and nerve system isn't functioning the right way. So the brain, like I said, communicates down through the spinal cord here. Any pressure, damage onto the nerves because there's pressure there can start to shut down nerves in here that go to organs. So C5 and C6, for instance, go to the thyroid, which controls metabolism. So any pressure or damage onto the thyroid, and it's not going to function and heal the right way, meaning your metabolism isn't going to work at its optimal level. Same thing in the nerves here in the low back. They go into the digestive tract. So any pressure or damage onto those nerves, and your body's not going to be able to digest or take part in a lot of the nutrients from the good food that you're now eating, right? So this scan here really indicates if there is pressure onto it, where the pressure is, and how you can get that stuff taken care of. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the PowerPoint in there. Now, I know you guys feel like there's a lot of foods that you can't eat, but I just want you to be, to recognize and be aware of a lot of the ingredients. If you do go to the grocery store and you walk around the aisles and just get the fresh fruits and vegetables and cook that stuff at home, you're literally going to bypass all this stuff in here. In terms of beverages, I would say you can stick to a lot of the beverages that have stevia or xylitol if you do want to have some type of sugar. source in it. How many of you guys have tried stevia? Do you guys like it? You don't like it? You can do. It does have a really strong aftertaste. Try xylitol, if anything. And that seems to be like a plant fiber as well, so it won't spike the blood sugar levels. The problem is the processing here in the United States isn't going to get any better. They're just going to keep on adding stuff into our food sources. So the more that you can recognize what's in the ingredients and how it can have an impact on your body, the better off you're going to be, and you won't start to eat that food. And once you start eating better foods for you, it changes your palate. Like, you don't crave all the sugary foods anymore too. So.
The last time you were here, you told us about milk. I haven't touched milk since.
Yeah.
I have had almond milk, but
Good.
I haven't had cow's milk since then.
Yeah. A lot of and what stuck out to you the most with cow's milk?
So we were drinking pus.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're adding aspartame to it, right?
And I can't do it.
Yeah. Now they're adding aspartame to it. So. Okay. Good. Does anyone have any questions? I know you guys feel like there's a lot of stuff that you can't eat, but I just really wanted to focus on the labels and understanding the ingredients and things that you should stay away from.
I think some people brought some packaging
Oh, cool.
homes that maybe you wanted to take a look at.
Yeah. So we did the peanut butter, the Peter Pan, right? So, and I can't even read half the ingredients on there because it's just so small. But peanut butter should just be peanuts and salt, right? And if you get the organic peanut butter versus like the regular conventional, the organic has, they remove some of the toxins in there, which doesn't create like an inflammatory response. A lot of people have allergies to peanuts, and a lot of it has to do with the toxin in there, so.
Anybody else bring anything they wanted to look at to break down some of the ingredients on their packaging?
Okay, I need one volunteer. Okay. In 30 seconds or less, all you have to do is say what you learned and what you're going to implement into your life.
Well, in between the two, not only today but prior to, I have a 13-year-old at home that if I let him, he would eat nothing but pure chemicals and junk all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, I have incorporated less junk and chemicals into his diet and more whole foods, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and lean meats into our diet, and less Burger King and McDonald's and so forth and so on. More water, less, he doesn't drink sodas, things of that nature. So I'm trying to raise him to be healthier because my mom allowed me to eat Burger King, McDonald's, and I drank 2 liters of Coke a day, and by the time I was 20, I had a bleeding ulcer.
Oh my gosh.
So over the course of his life, I've incorporated healthier eating habits, so he won't go through what I went through by the time he got into his 20s.
Good. That's a powerful
Yeah.
story behind it. And you recognize, how many people have heart disease in their family? Cancer. It's all around us. My neighbor from Buffalo, that's where I'm from, he died yesterday from lung cancer. He never smoked, but the people around him smoked. And so, what you do and the impact it has on your body, it's amazing. And you don't want to wait till it's too late. So, thank you. You get a wobble disc, which these are awesome. So patients will come in and they'll warm up with these in the office. And what you do is you're actually going to be able to sit on this when you're at work. So when you sit at work, hopefully it doesn't have wheels on it like this one. But do you see how my posture is nice and relaxed and up, straight? My shoulders are back. Really, I'm just going to teach you guys about posture since you all sit all day. You want to make sure that your shoulders are back so it doesn't cause your head to go forward. This wobble disc, amazing for it. So people will take these to work with them. And if you sit on it and you can wobble during the day, you start to get all loose in your lumbar spine. So it helps to really relieve a lot of stress and tension in the low back.
Cool, because I work out 3 days a week, and I have to constantly stretch my lower back all the time because I sit all day.
Yay!
Fabulous.
Yay! So, if you guys have any questions, I know a lot of people have been to a chiropractor before. I'm very, very different than the traditional chiropractic. And I don't use insurance. I do everything cash-based or credit or debit, however you want to put it. But it's always $50 for the first appointment for exams, consultations, and then any appointment afterwards is $30, which is usually a whole lot cheaper than most people's co-pays. So, but
Is an adjustment?
what's that?
Does that include an adjustment?
It does. Yep. So, if you have any questions, what's that?
Where are you located?
Magnolia Park. There's a Starbucks on 39th. I'm literally next door to Starbucks.
You have a card?
Yeah, I have a bunch of flyers here for you guys, so in case you're interested. I do everything very low stress, and I try to just teach you to be healthier and be more health conscious. That's really what I love doing, so it's always good to just check it out and see what it's about. So, okay.
Do you do nutrition plans?
I do. Yes. I'm a competitive bodybuilder, so I do a lot of different nutrition stuff for people, just recognizing how their body functions and how it responds to different foods. So.
You are a competitive bodybuilder?
Yes, I do the thin. There's 3 different types. There's bikini, there's figure, and then there's like the big bulky. I do the bikini, which is much smaller, but I'm about 14 weeks out from another show, so it's fun. It's strict, but it's fun.
Yeah, you do the more natural body
Yeah.
than the big, you know.
Whew, yeah. I'm gonna stay away from that. So, but I'm really good with nutrition and understanding what people need more of and what they need less of and stuff. So.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys.